All Christmas is Whistle. Presented by Lucen Mile.
Now, to see Zion in the snow is rare. So when it started to snow heavily the night before Christmas Eve, my husband and I had the same idea. Hiking up Riverwalk in Zion National Park would be magical on the day of Christmas Eve. The day was calm, clouds dusted the cold sky, and 6 inches of fresh snow sat on top of everything. My husband buzzed around like a bee, readying this and that. In truth, he had been wanting to try out the waterproof boots he had bought for us for a couple of weeks now. We lived in a small town about 15 miles from Zion's west entrance, and not by any happy coincidence. We had worked hard for years to be able to move here with the kids. Something about this place made our family stronger. All the drama we had dealt with over the past few years seemed to finally be sliding away. When we moved down here, we explored every corner of southern Utah, every chance we got. It breathed life into our family to get out and hike and look at the marvels that the southern end of Utah has to offer. We have been able to see amazing arches and canyons that defy imagination. There are places in this world that have the ability to touch your soul, and many of them are in Utah, but Zion has the ability to come into your soul and never leave it. We started out at about 9 in the morning. I was amazed actually when we got on the road. I never expected my 17, almost 18-year-old daughter would want to get out of bed. However, Sandy had popped out of bed in the morning, complete with Santa hat. Zion, I guess I'm not the only one it has a special power over. Soon sandwiches were packed and breakfast dishes left to stew in the sink. Our SUV cruised up the canyon.
Can we stop, Dad?
All right,
He said, and pulled off in the little parking lot for the small hike up to Weeping Rock. 10 minutes later, we walked out under Weeping Rock and looked at the canyon below.
I love this spot.
My son Alex said quietly. He had seen much in his years and had been happier and happier every day here in Utah.
we are one lucky family.
Rich, my husband, said. We stood there arm in arm, looking out over the calmest, most dramatic place on earth. I gave his hand a squeeze, and he gave me a smile. We headed back down to the truck, and a few minutes later we were back on the road, heading up the canyon past the bend. Alex's neck looked as if it would snap as he leaned out of the window, snapping pictures of Angel's Landing. When he finally came back in the window after coming all the way around the big bend, Alex sighed.
It's amazing to see in the snow.
Now Zion in the snow is rare to see. Even though we spend a lot of time in the canyon, this was the first time it was covered in white. We pulled into the empty lot at the top of the canyon, or at least the top you could drive into. We geared up and headed up the trail, Alex and Rich leading the charge up the canyon in our fancy waterproof boots. All right, even though I hate to admit it, they were pretty snazzy. My feet were toasty and warm and completely dry, but I will never tell him that.
I think they're about the same age.
Sandy said, observing the boys running from this to that on the trail, pointing at something like it was the most amazing thing in the universe, until of course something else became the most amazing thing in the universe. They both have passion, I quipped, and I think your father is a bit younger, I finished with a laugh.
That is true.
She said, laughing as well.
It's nice, though.
We looked at each other and smiled. Yes, it is very nice, I returned after a moment. We hiked on in silence, but that wonderful mother-child silence in which you feel your child's emotions. Have you thought about college at all anymore? I asked nervously. This was a question I was not fond of thinking about. In most cases, it would take her very far away from us, and I freely admit I was not ready for that step in her life.
Mom, relax. You can ask. In fact, you guys have been real chill about the whole thing.
She reassured me and put a hand over my shoulder, something she loved to do every time she had the chance since last year when she had grown taller than me. Damn her father's genes.
I have been talking to Dad about it and we figured a good idea. But we wanted to tell you and Alex about it tonight around the fireplace.
She said curtly. I'm not sure I like this. But it was apparent that I was not going to receive any more information until the designated time. I set my lip in mock discontent, but my daughter rolled her eyes at me and bumped into my shoulder.
Deal with it, Mom. You can hang.
She said with a giggle and not a little bit of attitude. Also something I'm sure she got from her father. I am not sure you are much older than them, I said with my best hurt tone. Of course she saw right through it. With a big smile, she stuck her tongue out at me and blew a big old raspberry. We hiked deeper into the canyon. It's an amazing feeling with the rock walls getting closer and closer together, but still soaring thousands of feet into the air. Red rock peeping out of the snow-covered landscape. Riverwalk is like no other place on this earth. The water there is a mixture of young energy from the river and much older, wiser energy from the water that drips out of the rock after being trapped for more years than I like to think about. It's the future and the past wrapped up into one, a place where magic seems not only possible, but commonplace. We made it up to the mouth of the Narrows, and of course Sandy convinced her dad that they had to jaunt up to the ledge, a family spot. A little ledge they would sunbathe on in the summer.
You coming, bro?
Sandy asked him. He shook his head a defiant no.
They may be waterproof, but they ain't Virgin River proof.
Suit yourself.
She smiled, and her and my husband were off into the canyon, while Alex and I just sat and ate some apples I had stowed away in a bag. The other two were at the ledge in 10 minutes, and Sandy looked up through the walls to the thin silver of sky. She smiled and thought about what a great day it was turning out to be when she felt a big, fat drop. Now in Zion National Park there is one place you should not be when it rains. The Narrows. As Sandy bounced off the ledge, her dad and she had the same thought.
Get down the canyon now!
Now.
They ran as fast as they dared, but they could hear the roar of the water as the rain went into a full-blown downpour. From behind them they heard,
To your right, climb the ledges.
Sandy had said she thought it was a hiker behind them, but when they got to the temporary safety of the ledge, she got the shock of her life. Behind them on the ledge was a full-grown werewolf. She wanted to scream, but the werewolf broke into a smile and said,
I'm trying to help.
He is.
her father said.
Get on.
The wolf said. She shut off the 10,000 questions in her head and hopped on. The werewolf jumped from ledge to ledge on the narrow walls, staying above the waterline the entire time. Down at the mouth, we were worried sick. The water had come up quite a ways and was getting more and more dangerous. I was very worried, and then a big, furry mass bounded out of the canyon. It was a huge, upright wolf, and on his back was my daughter holding on for dear life. He set her down at our feet, and then as fast as he came, he was gone into the canyon again. Her eyes were just as confused about him as mine and Alex's. How far up is he? I asked.
About 4 minutes down from the ledge. But we already had to climb the wall. The water was coming up quick.
The gravity of what she said snapped into my face.
I thought I was toast, till that thing showed up.
His feet were well underwater, and the ledge he was on was the highest he could get to.
At least Sandy has a chance.
He thought to himself, allowing thoughts of resigning to his fate take over. But they never took hold, because out of the storm bursts our furry friend. He hops on the wolf's back. Now Sandy has told us since that she screamed the whole ride, but my husband whooped and hollered. In fact, I heard him, and then bang zoom, they are into the mouth of the Narrows, and my husband is back in our arms. I knew what we owed that wolf, and when we were all hugging, he started to back away. "Don't you go anywhere," I said, pointing at him. He was a smart wolf and stayed. He shook off like a dog, and we all looked over.
Sorry, I hate wet fur,
he said with a big old werewolf grin. Sandy ran over to him and gave him a big hug, wet fur and all, my husband giving him big pats on the back.
"What's your name, big guy?"
he asked.
Tyos,
He said, and my daughter limped away from him.
are you all right?
He asked.
Yeah, I sprained my ankle pretty bad, but it could have been a lot worse thanks to you.
She said. We were still in awe of the amazing creature in front of us. Believing in werewolves was hard enough, but finding them here?
I could carry you down the canyon if you like.
Tyos asked.
I don't think I will ever get this chance again. Okay, sure.
She hopped into his arms and we all started down the trail. Within a few minutes the rain blew over and a light snow began to fall. Sandy took the Santa hat off her head and set it on the wolf's. He gave a large toothy grin.
I'm not sure kids would want me to bring their presents.
Tyos chuckled to himself. You brought us a couple of great presents already, I said, squeezing his furry arm. We asked Tyos many questions. We found he had come from close by, but his mentor had come from a pack many miles north. He spoke that one day he may go north to try and find more of his kind, but he said the canyon was a hard home to leave. Tyos looked around at that canyon like we did. No matter how many times he walked through, it was still astounding to see. It was very clear that his love for the canyon was no less than anyone's. He seemed lonely, and I hoped he would go find his mentor's pack. Don't get me wrong, I am very glad he was there that day. I just hope that he finds the peace of family. As we came out into the parking lot, Alex stood transfixed, his eyes locked across the river to the wall on the other side of the canyon. Alex loves to stare at the chimney, a rock formation that climbers love. He wanted to climb it very badly, but would have to wait a few more years. Tyos saw the longing stare and felt a kinship in the desire. He turned to my husband.
He is a climber?
Tyos asked.
"You have no idea,"
he replied.
Do you mind?
Tyos asked. It took us a second to understand what he was asking, but it did finally dawn on us. We both answered at the same time. He would love it. Tyos stood tall and walked over to Alex and laid his hand on his shoulder.
You looking at the chimney?
Tyos asked.
Yeah.
He said with a bit of a sigh. Tyos stooped next to him.
Get on!
He gruffed. Alex broke out in a huge smile. He jumped on the wolf's back.
On!
He shouted from the back. Tyos broke out into a run. He hopped the river and leapt onto the chimney. They flew up the red rock. Alex's woohoo faded away the higher they got, but we saw him raise his arms in triumph at the top. In the next moment they came charging down the side of the canyon in a route that no human could even conceive of. When he got down, we all said goodbye. He was still wearing the Santa hat as we all headed down the canyon. That night, Sandy and my husband announced that she would go to a school not horribly far away. The day could have spun into tragedy, but a very large, furry wolf had decided that today our family would not be torn apart. We all went to sleep with a peace and calm I have never felt before. The next year, Sandy got Tyos a present. We all hiked up Riverwalk hoping to see the magnificent wolf again, but he never reappeared. She left his gift at the top of Riverwalk. What did she get him, you ask? Well, he said he hated wet fur. Merry Christmas to all the creatures out there, including the werewolves.
Thanks to Wendy Erickson, Olivia Wallace, Saul Mitchell, Steven Spicer, Kayla Mayer, and Zayna Mayer. Hey, that's me!